Standing right now, you're living at a fraction of your potential, not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because your mind has convinced you that discomfort means stop. It's lying to you. That wall you keep hitting. Standing, that's not the end. It's the door to the version of you the world hasn't met yet. And the key to unlocking it is simple: stop making excuses, face the pain, and push further than you've ever gone before. You think you've given your all. You're not even close. Life will give you every reason to settle where you are. It will hand you pain, loss, failure, and disappointment, and it will whisper in your ear that these are reasons to stop trying. The truth is, those whispers are lies disguised as logic. Every time you repeat the story of why you couldn't, why you didn't, or why it's too late, you strengthen the walls around you. You begin to live in a prison you've built with your own hands, brick by brick, excuse by excuse. Those excuses feel safe, but they also keep you trapped. It's easy to point at your past, your circumstances, or other people and say, "That's why I can't." But deep down, you know the truth. There are reasons you gave yourself to avoid the fight. The fight isn't out there. It's inside of you. And until you own your story, those excuses will own you. Every person carries a story. Some are stories of tragedy, others of hardship, others of being overlooked or underestimated. Standing. That story can either be your foundation or your anchor, depending on how you hold it. When you let the painful parts of your story become your identity, you stop writing new chapters. You live in a loop, replaying the same reasons over and over, expecting change but doing nothing new. Owning your story means taking full responsibility for it, not so you can blame yourself, but so you can claim the power to change it. When you accept that no one is coming to save you, something shifts inside. You stop waiting for perfect conditions, and you start working with the broken pieces you have. Standing, that's where transformation begins, not when life is fair, but when you stop needing it to be fair. The reality is standing. Excuses are comforting because they take the pressure off you. They give you a ready-made answer when someone asks why you haven't changed, why you haven't grown, why you haven't reached your potential. But comfort is a slow killer. It robs you of urgency, it dulls your edge, and it convinces you that tomorrow will be easier. Tomorrow won't be easier. It will be exactly as hard, if not harder, because you'll have one more day of habit holding you back. The longer you tell yourself the same excuses, the more they harden into your reality. And before you know it, you've spent years defending the very thing that's been keeping you from becoming who you were meant to be. It's not about pretending the challenges don't exist. It's about refusing to let them dictate your future. Standing. There's a moment every person faces where the pain of staying the same finally becomes greater than the pain of changing. Standing. That's when the excuses lose their grip, when you decide that the discomfort of pushing forward is worth more than the comfort of standing still. Standing. You don't need anyone to give you permission to change. You don't need the right timing, the right environment, or the right support system. All you need is the decision that you're done being defined by the reasons you can't. When you make that decision, the weight shifts from your shoulders to your hands. You're no longer a victim of your past. You become the author of your future. And authors don't write excuses. They write action. Standing. People will always understand your excuses because they understand fear. They understand giving in when things get hard because most have done it themselves. Standing. But if you want to live a life that inspires others, you have to be willing to do what most won't. That means not only rejecting your excuses, but also rejecting the sympathy that comes with them. Sympathy feels good in the short term, but it keeps you small in the long term. When you stop telling the world why you can't and start showing it how you can, you rise above the noise. You begin to see opportunities where before you only saw obstacles. And the more you act without excuses, the more proof you create that your story can be rewritten. Your mind will fight you in this process. It will present you with every logical reason to quit, to slow down, to wait for a better day. It will remind you of your failures, highlight your weaknesses, and magnify your fears. But that's not your mind trying to destroy you. It's your mind trying to protect you. It thinks safety means staying where you are. Standing, you have to retrain it to see that safety is a lie, and that growth is the only true security you have. That retraining starts with a choice. Every time an excuse appears, you counter it with action. You move forward, even if it's small, because each step without an excuse rewires you to believe that you can. The shift from excuses to ownership doesn't happen overnight. It's a fight. One you'll have to win over and over again. Some days you'll wake up ready to conquer everything, and other days you'll wake up ready to give in. The difference will be whether you listen to the voice that says, on those days, you have to remember that ownership isn't about how you feel in the moment. It's about the commitment you made to yourself when you decided to change. Feelings are temporary, but the consequences of giving in to excuses are permanent. Every time you push past them, you reinforce the truth that you're stronger than you think. That's how ownership is built: repetition, discipline, and a refusal to surrender. When you own your story, you stop comparing your path to anyone else's. Stand-in excuses often come from comparison, thinking someone else had it easier, started with more, or didn't face what you faced. But comparison is a distraction from your own work. Your only responsibility is to take the hand you were dealt and play it to the best of your ability. Ownership means saying, yes, this is my life, and it's my job to make something of it. When you think this way, the need for excuses fades because you're too busy creating results. And results speak louder than reasons ever will. Everything changes when you realize that your past is not your fault, but your future is your responsibility. Excuses protect your ego, but they don't protect your dreams. Every time you choose the excuse, you delay the life you could be living. Every time you choose ownership, you take one step closer to it. This is not about perfection. It's about direction. You may still stumble, still fall, still face setbacks, standing. But ownership means you get back up without a speech about why you fell. You get up, adjust, and keep moving. Because in the end, the only thing that matters is not the story you tell about why you couldn't, standing, but the story you lived because you decided you could. The greatest battle you will ever fight will not be against another person, an obstacle, or the circumstances of your life. It will be against the quiet voice in your head that tells you to stop, to slow down, to give up. Your mind is a master of convincing you you've reached your limit long before your body actually has. It does this to protect you from discomfort, but comfort is the very thing that keeps you from growth. The mental wall is not a real barrier. It's a signal from your mind saying, this is as far as you've gone before. The problem is most people hear that signal and stop. They treat it as a command instead of a challenge. But the wall is not the end. It's the beginning of the real work. Every time you hit that mental wall, you are standing at the border between who you are and who you could be. Standing. Your mind builds that border based on your past experiences, your fears, and your perceived limits. It will remind you of the times you failed, the moments you felt pain, and the times you've been embarrassed or rejected. But those memories are not there to define you. They are there to test you. Standing. When you push against the wall, your mind will resist harder, using every thought it can to pull you back. That resistance is proof you're moving into new territory. Standing. The more you train yourself to recognize that feeling as progress instead of defeat, the more you expand your capacity. Breaking through the mental wall begins long before you face it. It starts in how you train your thoughts daily. If you only push yourself when you feel motivated, you'll never develop the discipline needed to win the war in your mind. You have to make a habit of doing the hard things, especially when you don't feel like it. Standing, each time you choose discomfort over ease, you teach your mind that it's not in control you are. This rewiring process is slow and uncomfortable, but it's the foundation of mental toughness. By consistently choosing the harder path, you create proof for yourself that you can handle more than you think. That proof becomes your weapon when the wall appears. Your mind operates like a thermostat. It tries to keep you in a familiar range. When you step outside that range, whether physically, mentally, or emotionally, it will trigger alarms to pull you back. This is why growth feels so unnatural. It's literally your mind trying to maintain homeostasis. If you're not aware of this, and you'll mistake the alarms for signs that you should stop. But if you understand the process, you can use the alarms as confirmation that you're on the right track. Standing. The mental wall is simply the point where the alarms are loudest. If you can keep moving forward despite the noise, you'll push your normal to a whole new level. Most people lose the battle in their mind because they believe every thought they have. They think fear means danger, pain means damage, standing, and fatigue means they've reached the end. But thoughts are not facts. They are suggestions. The mind loves to suggest the path of least resistance because it's safer, more predictable, and less threatening. You have to develop the ability to filter those suggestions and act based on your goals, not your feelings. Standing. This means talking to yourself more than you listen to yourself. Replace the thoughts that tell you to quit with commands that tell you to go. Over time, this mental dialogue becomes the difference between stopping at the wall and running through it. When the wall feels unbreakable, it's because you're measuring progress by comfort instead of capacity. The first step in breaking it is shifting your focus from how you feel to what you can still do. You may feel exhausted, but can you take one more step? You may feel overwhelmed, but can you focus for one more minute? That's how you dismantle the wall, piece by piece, standing, action by action. When you do this, you start to realize that the wall was never solid. It was only a projection made up of your fears and doubts. The moment you see that, the power it holds over you disappears. Training the mind to break through requires exposing yourself to controlled hardship. Seek out situations that test your patience, your endurance, and your problem solving under pressure. The more you experience these tests intentionally, the less power unexpected challenges will have over you. Each time you push through a difficult situation, you are building a library of victories in your memory. When you face the wall again, you can pull from that library and remind yourself, I've done hard things before, and I can do this too. This is how you transform the mental wall from a stopping point into a starting signal. The mind loves predictability, but growth demands unpredictability. If you do the same things the same way every day, your mental strength will stagnate. To expand it, you have to introduce uncertainty into your life. Take on challenges you don't fully know how to solve. Step into situations where failure is possible, and push yourself in environments that demand adaptability. This keeps the mind from locking into a fixed range of comfort. Over time, standing, you'll notice that what once caused panic now feels manageable, and what once felt impossible now feels like a warm-up. Standing, that's the reward of repeatedly stepping past the mental wall. No one is immune to the mental wall. It appears for everyone, no matter how experienced or strong they are. The difference is that those who succeed see it as part of the process, not a problem to avoid. They expect it, prepare for it, standing, and welcome it because they know it's the gate to the next level. Every time you face it and refuse to back down, you prove to yourself that your limits are negotiable. That proof compounds over time, turning your mind from your greatest enemy into your greatest ally. When that happens, the wall doesn't disappear. It just becomes another step on the path forward. Discomfort is where the real growth hides, but most people spend their lives running from it. Standing, they chase convenience, seek shortcuts, and try to engineer a life that's as smooth as possible. But a smooth road doesn't make a strong driver. Standing, the moments that shape you are never the easy ones. They're the ones that test every ounce of patience, grit, and resilience you have. Standing, when you choose to lean into discomfort instead of avoiding it, you discover parts of yourself you didn't know existed. The truth is, the path to your best self will always pass through pain, frustration, and fear. It's the price of transformation. And the more you resist paying it, the longer you stay the same. Discomfort strips away illusions. It forces you to confront the reality of your strength, your weaknesses, and your mindset. When you're cold, tired, or under pressure, there's no room for pretending. You find out exactly who you are. Most people avoid that mirror because they're afraid of what they'll see standing. But that fear is the reason they never grow. Facing discomfort means accepting that you're not as prepared, skilled, or tough as you thought. And that's not a weakness. That's the starting point. Growth begins the moment you admit you're not there yet and decide to do the work anyway, standing. You can't wait for discomfort to happen by accident. You have to seek it out on purpose. That means doing things you don't feel ready for, then tackling challenges that intimidate you, and putting yourself in situations where failure is a real possibility. Each time you do this, you build a tolerance for the unknown. You stop flinching at the first sign of difficulty because you've trained yourself to stay in the fight. Voluntary discomfort is a muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it gets. Eventually, what used to scare you becomes routine, and your threshold for what's hard rises higher than you thought possible. There's a reason most people never reach their full potential. They quit at the first sign of struggle. They think struggle means something is wrong, when in reality, it's a sign they're exactly where they should be. Discomfort is a compass pointing toward growth. The things that make you anxious, frustrated, or exhausted are the very things that will stretch your limits. But you have to choose to stay there long enough to benefit from them. Most tap out before the breakthrough because they confuse temporary pain with permanent damage. Learn to tell the difference, and you'll unlock a level of resilience most people never touch. The mind will always look for an exit when things get hard. It will suggest that you take a break, come back later, or try something easier. But every time you choose the exit, you reinforce the habit of quitting. On the other hand, every time you stay, you train yourself to endure. The beauty of discomfort is that it's temporary. No matter how intense it feels in the moment, it will pass. Standing. What stays is the strength you gain from enduring it. Over time, that strength compounds, making the next challenge easier to face. The discomfort doesn't get smaller. You get bigger. When you embrace discomfort, you start to see it differently. Instead of being something to dread, it becomes a signal that you're on the right track. You understand that easy moments don't build champions. Hard ones do. And you begin to crave the feeling of struggle because you associate it with progress. That shift in perspective is powerful because it removes the fear from the process. Standing. You're no longer shocked when things get tough. You expect it. And when you expect it, you're ready for it. Standing. That readiness gives you an edge over those still waiting for life to be comfortable before they start. Standing. The growth that comes from discomfort is not just physical, it's mental and emotional too. Difficult conversations, tough decisions, standing, and moments of vulnerability are forms of discomfort that build character. Avoiding them keeps you in shallow waters where nothing truly changes. Facing them, on the other hand, standing, deepens your capacity for courage, empathy, and confidence. You start to realize that the pain of discomfort is small compared to the pain of regret. Standing. And regret is what you'll feel if you keep letting fear dictate your choices. Choose short-term discomfort over long-term regret every time. Standing. Embracing discomfort doesn't mean seeking suffering for no reason. It means using it as a tool for growth. Standing. There's a difference between pain that breaks you and pain that builds you. The kind that builds you has purpose behind it. It's the extra set in the gym. It's standing, the difficult project at work, the conversation you've been avoiding. These moments are investments in your future self. You endure them now so you can be stronger, smarter, and more capable later. The more you invest, the more returns you get in the form of confidence and resilience. You'll know you're growing when discomfort becomes part of your normal routine, not because life magically gets easier, but because your relationship with challenge changes. You stop interpreting struggle as a sign to stop and start seeing it as confirmation you're making progress. That shift turns obstacles into opportunities. Standing. Every time you choose to lean into the challenge instead of away from it, you sharpen your skills and toughen your mindset. Over time, standing, you'll look back and realize the very moments you used to avoid have become the reason you're stronger than ever. Most people quit when they've only given about 40% of what they're capable of. They think they've hit their limit, standing, but what they've really hit is the point where it starts to get uncomfortable. The body can go much further, but the mind convinces them to stop. Standing, this is why the idea of limits is often just a story you tell yourself, not an actual wall you've reached. You are capable of more than you can imagine, standing, but you'll never see it if you stop at the first sign of strain. That 40% mark is a trap. It feels like the end, but it's just the beginning, standing. If you can push past it, you'll find an entirely new level of strength, endurance, and resilience. And every time you break past it, you push the line further, standing. This is how limits are destroyed. The first step to pushing beyond 40% is recognizing that the feeling of being done is rarely accurate. Your mind is wired to protect you, and it will throw up warning signs long before you're in real danger. Fatigue, discomfort, and doubt are not signals to stop. They're invitations to keep going. When you feel that urge to quit, that's the moment to lean in. The more you do this, the more you realize that the point you thought was your breaking point is just a checkpoint. It's a marker saying, here's where most people stop. You have to decide that you won't be like most people. That decision changes everything, standing, because it puts you in control of how far you go. Pushing beyond 40% is not just about the body. It's about training the mind to accept more, standing. The body can handle far more strain than most people allow it to, but the mind calls it off too early, standing. This means you have to condition your thoughts just as much as your muscles. You do this by repeatedly putting yourself in situations where you go past the point of comfort and discover you can still perform. Each time you do, you create proof that your limit was never real. That proof becomes fuel for the next time you hit that wall. Eventually, you stop asking, can I keep going? And start telling yourself, I've been here before and I know I can. Every time you break past that false limit, you expand your capacity, not just for physical work, but for mental toughness in every area of life. The ability to keep going when you want to stop spills over into your relationships, your work, and your goals, standing. You develop a mindset that refuses to back down just because things get hard. This is why high achievers in any field push past their perceived limits over and over again. They know that's where breakthroughs lie. The extra reps, the extra hours, the extra effort after everyone else has stopped. That's where greatness is built. It's never comfortable, but it's always worth it. And it's always on the other side of that 40% line. The danger of stopping early is that it becomes a habit. If you quit at 40% today, standing, you'll quit at 40% tomorrow. You'll begin to believe that you've already given your all when you haven't even scratched the surface, standing. That belief will shape your actions, and your actions will shape your life. Before long, you'll be living far below your potential without even realizing it. Standing, breaking this habit means forcing yourself to go past that first, I'm done moment. It's in that push where your real potential lies. Once you've experienced what it feels like to go further than you thought possible, you'll never be satisfied stopping early again. To break through 40%, you have to embrace the fact that it will hurt. Your lungs will burn, your muscles will ache, and your mind will scream at you to stop. That's exactly how it's supposed to feel. Pain is not the enemy. It's the signal that you're doing something meaningful. The key is to separate pain from panic. Discomfort means you're growing. Panic means you need to reassess. As long as you're safe, you keep pushing. Every second you spend past that 40% mark is a second you're teaching yourself that your old limits were lies. And the more often you do it, standing, the less intimidating it becomes. There's a shift that happens when you push past your limits often enough. Standing, you start to see that the best parts of life are on the other side of struggle. The victories taste sweeter because you know how much you endured to earn them. Standing, the challenges seem less threatening because you've proven to yourself that you can survive much worse. Your confidence grows, not because things get easier, but because you've made a habit of facing what's hard and coming out stronger. That confidence becomes a force in your life. It pushes you to take bigger risks, chase bigger goals, and expect more from yourself every day. The 40% rule doesn't just apply to physical endurance. It applies to your goals, your career, your personal growth. Most people give up on dreams when they hit the first big roadblock, thinking they've done all they can. But the truth is, they've barely started. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is often just the willingness to keep going past that point. The project that feels impossible, the business that feels stuck, the skill that feels too hard. These are all sitting at your 40% mark. If you keep going when others stop, you set yourself apart instantly. Once you've felt the power of pushing beyond 40%, it changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who just trees and start seeing yourself as someone who finishes. That identity shapes your actions in every area of life. You approach challenges differently because you no longer measure them by how hard they are. You measure them by how far past your comfort zone they'll take you. That mindset makes you unstoppable because you're no longer limited by what feels possible in the moment. You've trained yourself to look beyond the moment, to see what's waiting on the other side. Pushing past 40% is not just about achievement. It's about becoming the kind of person who refuses to settle. It's about building a life where you know, without doubt, that you gave everything you had and then some. Most people will never know what that feels like, because they stopped too soon. But if you keep going, if you make a habit of breaking through that wall, you'll live a life most people can't imagine. You'll see possibilities they can't see because you've gone places they've never dared to go. And when you get there, you'll know the truth. Your limits were never real. They were just waiting for you to push past them.